You're listening to Big World Network.
Just Kill Me, Season 4, Episode 4, I Become a Daddy. Written and read by Wendy Herman. I woke up and felt like the world was spinning 1,000,000 miles an hour. As my eyes focused, I realized why. I was in the passenger seat of a car and we were barreling down the freeway. It was dark and there were only a few other cars on the road. I was queasy and it intensified as I slowly turned my head toward the driver of the death trap. I closed my eyes tight and reopened them. I didn't understand what I was seeing. Freya's dad, Jerry, was clutching the wheel, staring straight ahead at the nearly deserted road. Suddenly a sharp pain shot through my head. I made a noise and held my head in my hands. It must have gotten Jerry's attention because he gave me a fatherly pat on the knee. The headache will pass. I sat up and winced at him. You gave me something. I wasn't accusing him. I was simply stating what I knew to be the truth. He glanced at me but said nothing. The last thing I remember was Trevor throwing me in the sub-cell, and then you brought me a Coke. He ignored me, glaring at the road in front of him. What did you give me? I asked, but then realized that wasn't the important question at the moment. And where the hell are we going? He didn't answer. I looked out the window and searched for signs or landmarks. When the freeway sign sped by, I instantly knew where we were headed. We're going to Garrity? I turned to him as something odd occurred to me. How did you get me in the car without someone noticing? He chuckled. I had a little help. Our muscle-bound friend, young Jasper, was very eager to assist me. Jasper? The newbie guard you knocked out with his own gun? Why would he want to help you? Let's just say he's very impressionable, and I'm very persuasive. He smiled and shook his head. Something funny? I was irritated. All I could think of was getting back to Freya. He was so ready to believe that it was all an exercise. You and Freya getting locked up, Trevor and I escaping, and well, when I told him he had performed in an exemplary manner and might just get some notice from D.C. for it, he was practically humping my leg. Nice, I said sarcastically, sneering at the unwanted mental picture I now had, and eager to change the subject. So why are we going to Garrity? I left something there. Yeah, a pile of burning rubble, I remarked. I tried to stay calm. I wanted to scream at him to stop the goddamn car and tell me what the hell was going on, but a part of me wanted to see what was in Garrity. Are you going to tell me why you drugged me and kidnapped me? I mean, if you want to go to the hole in the ground you created the other day, why drag me with you? Without looking at me, Jerry responded. I need your help. With what? He sighed and slowed down as we passed an 18-wheeler on the side of the road with its hazard lights on. I didn't think he was going to give me an answer until... I didn't destroy everything. I need your help retrieving the proof we need to put a stop to all this. What are you talking about? What proof? And if you've had this proof all along, why didn't you just bring it with you when Freya and I came to get you? I needed to be sure that it was time. Okay, if you don't stop talking in riddles, I'm going to jump out of the car. Jerry looked at me for a second and smirked. Either he didn't believe I would really do it, or he was impressed that I was considering it. We were going 95 miles per hour, after all. I'll do it, Jerry. It wouldn't be the first time I've had to bail out of a speeding car. Hold your horses, Evel Knievel. I'll tell you what I can. I waited, and waited. 5 minutes ticked by, and I reached for the door handle. It had been 12 years since I jumped out of a moving vehicle, and it had been no fun then. I still had the scars from the road rash. I glanced out the window and realized we were off the freeway. In fact, we were getting close to Garrity, and I was running out of time to evacuate the premises. I drugged you because I knew you'd never come with me after I helped Trevor escape. You think? Why did you help that scumbag? I had to. I owed him. I waited for more details, but none came, so I tried to keep the conversation going. So you aren't working for him? For Trevor? Hell no. I'm trying to stop him. Stop him from doing what? Jerry pulled into his driveway, the dirt road that used to lead to a dilapidated shack he had called home for a decade. He put the car in park and turned to me, his face more serious than I'd ever seen it. Trevor told Pixley he was given a Priority 1 assignment 20 years ago to watch Freya. I know, the whole marriage was a sham, I reiterated. It's not true. He wasn't told to watch Freya. In fact, as far as Washington is concerned, the 2 sleeper assassins created back then are dead. I was silent. RVW has been written off by Washington. So many administrations have come and gone. Well, eventually some genius decided that the RVW project wasn't worth keeping tabs on anymore, and they declared it a non-issue. That's when I initially came out of hiding, to try to talk some sense into them. I went to FBI headquarters and went through all the proper channels. Bullshit, all of it. And eventually got in to see the director. Wait, what do you mean, talk some sense into them? Why is it such a bad thing if they forget about us? Those things they put in your heads, he said with urgency, while tapping his pointer finger to my temple a little too hard. We put in your heads. He looked sad for a second, like he was thinking of a bad memory. Then he looked back up at me. They need to come out. And if the program was completely blacked out, I thought that would never happen. I had to get them to keep the program open. But when I was turned away, told their records said you were both dead, I didn't know what to do. I wasn't completely following, but I was trying. When was that? 10 years ago, right before I went into hiding again, here. He gestured outside the car at the spot where his house once stood. Why did you go back into hiding? When I went to D.C., it stirred up some trouble. There were still a few old codgers in the Senate who remembered me, and didn't want the mistakes that were made 20 years ago to resurface. I didn't realize my reappearance would cause renewed interest in, well, you two. I didn't want to put you both, and my grandsons, in danger, so I ran. Mistakes? You already know that Trevor altered your memories, and when I found out about it 20 years ago, he convinced me to make a deal. But what he did, what I know now... You made a deal with the Antichrist. It was stupid, but at the time, I believed it was the only way to keep Freya safe. How exactly did Trevor keep Freya safe? I asked, not believing what I was hearing. I would have thought Jerry was smarter than to trust Trevor, but then again, I had trusted him for 20 years, with my life. He promised he'd take care of her, keep her safe by hiding her, by turning her into June Cleaver? Yeah, I guess. But she was determined to go into the Air Force before she would marry him, and no matter what he put in her head, he couldn't talk her out of it. He even threatened to leave her, and she called his bluff. I guess even a brain implant can't overcome free will all of the time. Maybe a part of her was resisting a life with Trevor, but... He paused. But she got out of the Air Force after 4 years, when she could have had a very successful career. She could have been a general, I thought aloud. Jerry sighed. Yes, she could have, but I was relieved when she resigned her commission. She wasn't safe in such a high-profile job, not just because she might run into someone who'd been part of RVW, but because we couldn't risk her activating spontaneously in such an environment. So you had something to do with her not continuing in the Air Force, I stated. Trevor promised to do everything to keep her safe, even risk his own life, and I promised to help him whenever he asked. After 4 years of her still in the Air Force, he asked. So I helped. How? I helped him get Freya pregnant. What? That didn't come out right. What I mean is, we both knew Freya wanted kids, so when the time was right, I provided the necessary ingredient for the cocktail, shall we say. I gave him an even more horrified look, and he made to recant again. Boy, talking to you is like talking to a 12-year-old. I mean, I found appropriate sperm. It wasn't mine. You have a very disturbing mind. You know that? You should know. You've been in there. He peered over the top of his glasses at me before shrugging and sighing again. Touché, my boy. We sat in the dark car in the dark driveway in silence for about 5 minutes. I was trying to focus and decide what to ask next. I had no idea how long Jerry was going to feel like answering my questions, so I had to hurry. What did you mean when you said what I know now? What did he do, Jerry? I asked, although I was pretty sure I wasn't going to like the answer. He stared at me, taking several deep breaths before he responded. He put a timer in the implants. A timer. After a certain amount of time, the implants will... What? The implants will what, Jerry? Deactivate? Melt? I didn't want to say it out loud, but I couldn't help myself. Explode? At that, his eyes widened and his mouth fell open. You're shitting me, right? You're just messing with me. The implants aren't going to literally explode. Not literally like a bomb, no, but more like a predetermined self-destruct. The implants will disintegrate on the programmed day and time Trevor chose. And when is that? I demanded. Well, you can't say Trevor doesn't have a sense of humor. Jerry. He sighed so deep I found myself gasping for air. April 23rd. This year? 2 months. From now? Why would he do that? After 20 years, why would he program... For 20 years, why would he... I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. It's 20 years to the day the implants were put in. He's crazy, Rip. He always has been. Ever since we rescued him, I knew he had the potential. Rescued him? I asked. He looked at me and smiled. That's a conversation for another time, my boy. Suddenly he seemed to perk up. Of course, he hadn't just found out his brain was going to burn out in about 2 months. And Freya. I couldn't think about that. Not now. He held his keyring up to his face and searched for a certain one. Ah, here it is. He beamed at me and I felt nauseated. As he moved to exit the car, he looked at me and seemed to notice I was having a hard time dealing with the news. Cheer up, my boy. I need your young legs to climb down into my bomb shelter. You'll be in and out of there in a matter of minutes. Come on. Still, I couldn't move. I couldn't stop the horrible thoughts of Freya's head exploding from playing over and over in my head. I couldn't bear the thought. Jerry sat back down in the driver's seat but remained quiet for a moment. How about a little good news? He finally asked. I slowly turned my head and gave him a confused look. When you first signed up for the RBW program, we tested you in every way possible. We performed dozens of medical tests to ensure you were perfectly healthy. We collected a lot of bodily fluids. He glanced at me with raised eyebrows. I stared back blankly. He gave a frustrated sigh before continuing. The FBI has an unsettling habit of keeping these fluids, for whatever reasons, for decades, some on ice for preservation purposes. Again he glanced at me, and again I was drawing a blank. I couldn't concentrate on what he was saying. He slapped me on the back, startling me so much I thought my heart had stopped. I'm trying to tell you, you're the father of my grandsons, boy. I looked at him, waiting for my emotions to take over, but I just felt numb. Rip, do you understand what I'm saying? You're a daddy! He was elated. I quickly unbuckled my seatbelt, opened the passenger door, and vomited on the ground.
You're listening to Big World Network.